This is the fourth lecture in a four-part series on sailboat racing. The subject this time is rules. Most of this video is a recording of a lunchtime talk that I gave to the Mini 12 fleet at the Royal Victoria Yacht Club in 2013.
You know how to make a boat go fast, you know which way to go. There's only one other problem. That problem is there's other people out there trying to do the same thing. If they weren't out there, we wouldn't need rules. But because they are, we're going to have to talk for the next half hour about rules. The book that I always use is one written by Dave Perry. But you don't need to buy a book. You can download the actual rules right off the press on the internet. So the fundamental rule, and we're going to talk about these all in a few minutes, is that starboard boat has right of way over a port boat. In virtually all situations, that's Rule 10, the windward versus leeward. The windward boat has to keep clear. And Rule 13 says that while you're tacking, you don't have right of way. So the question is, when are you tacking? Is it when you start your tack? Well, no, actually it isn't. The definition of tacking is when you pass head to wind and come down, and all that period until you get down to a close-hauled course. Now, you don't necessarily have the sails in yet, but you're on that course. So until you pass head to wind, you're just luffing. But tacking is that period of time from head to wind to a course approximately 45 degrees off the wind, where you are on a close-hauled course. Important rules. We'll spend a lot of time on this. Mark room and luffing, because that's where most of the conflicts occur. And it's also some of the interesting stuff that you can use to potentially put yourself at an advantage over the competition. There are some other rules which we won't talk about at length. It's one dealing with obstructions. We don't have much of that in our racing, other than people trying to run others into the dock on the downwind leg, scraping them off. And room to keep clear. Just because you're right away, you have to give the other person at least a half a second to start making a motion to get around. So let's get into this in detail. Well, the tack is the side of the boat that the wind is coming across, which here, because the wind's coming down the top, is obviously coming across the starboard side of the boat. So the yellow boat has right of way. Red has to keep clear. And looking at the relative positions of these two boats, they're going to have a collision unless someone does something. But what usually happens is red looks over there and says, you know, I can probably make it across there.
Yeah.
So that's always the question. Can you or can't you? So what are the options? Well, you can keep going, hold your breath, and hope to keep clear. The other option is to tack. Now, if you tack far enough in advance so it's not a crash tack, that can sometimes work. You can get yourself into a so-called lee bow position, where you have tacked just to leeward of the other boat and just ahead of the other boat. The beauty of that is that you're getting all kinds of dirt off your sails onto the other boat, and all of a sudden they'll start to fall back and fall down lower. Next thing you know, you're as high as they are. The other option, of course, is to admit defeat and duck the other boat. And that is not as bad as you might think, as long as, again, you don't leave it to the last second. Because if you're at all in doubt, okay, start aiming for the transom of the other boat and ease your sheets a little bit so you actually accelerate. So you're going faster, cross them as close as you dare, and then immediately round up, bringing your sheets back in, and that little burst of speed will be such that you don't lose as much as you think. Okay, so that's rule 10 going upwind. Which boat is on starboard tack here? The side of the boat that the main sail is not on is the tack you're on. So here, the yellow boat has the boom out on the port side. So we therefore define that the wind is coming a little bit that direction from the starboard. So you're going downwind, the tack you're on is the side of the boat that is opposite where the main is. Okay, Rule 11 is windward versus leeward, and this is easy to understand. Well, is it easy to understand? Tell me, why is the yellow boat the windward boat here?
It's close to the wind.
That's right. As the wind comes down from the top of the page, it's going to hit the yellow boat before it hits the red boat. Therefore, yellow is the windward boat, and has to keep clear. So the red boat has right of way. That's the way you imagine it. So this is the simple case. Now, here's a situation that often occurs out in our fleet. And we know that both boats are on starboard because the boom is on the port side of the center line in both cases. And the wind coming down the top of the page hits the red boat before it gets to the yellow boat. Therefore, red is a windward boat and has to keep clear. Now here's another situation where the boats are side by side. What tack are the two boats on?
Starboard.
They're both on starboard. So which boat has right of way and why?
The yellow boat.
The yellow boat. But the key is that the wind is not getting to the red boat before it gets to the yellow boat, is it? Okay. They're both on starboard tack because they both have the boom on port side. With the boom being on port side, you have to interpret that as saying that the wind is generally coming across the starboard side. And if it was coming across the starboard side, it would hit the red boat before the yellow boat. And yellow, as Bob would say, is in a position to luff, possibly, all depending on how this overlap was established. Now, this is going to get us into Rule 17, which is one of the more interesting rules. Luffing rights. If a boat, clear astern, gets overlapped with a boat up ahead to leeward, and this overlap occurs within 2 boat lengths. They didn't sort of start out over here in the left field and slowly drift over. Then, the boat that established this overlap from the stern shall not sail above the proper course, got another definition, while they're on the same tack and overlap. So, if this yellow boat had, what typically happens when you're going downwind is the boat that's behind often has the advantage because they're taking the wind away from the boat at front. So if you sit right on their stern, you slow them down, and meanwhile you've got that great breeze, you quickly poke your bow underneath them and claim an overlap. Now, you can't then suddenly luff them up because you got the overlap from clear astern and to leeward. So depending on how this occurred, yellow may or may not have rights to luff up. So luffing rights before the start. Remember it said proper course. The boat that is overtaking to leeward may not luff above their proper course. And what is the proper course for a boat? The definition of a proper course is the course that a boat would sail in the absence of any other boats around it. So if that other boat you're trying to take out wasn't there, what would you do? If you sail over there, well, you're entitled to sail over there. But you can't suddenly come down and say, oh, my proper course is to sail way up there, luffing you head to wind. That's not your proper course. Before the start, there is no proper course, right? After the start, though, there is a proper course, because once you're racing, there is a course which you would normally sail in the absence of any other boat in order to get around the course as quickly as possible. So let's have a look at some examples. Before the start, now the start is when the gun goes and the flag goes up, not when you cross the line, it's when the actual timer counts down to 0. Before the start, it doesn't matter what the history is, how this overlap got established, yellow is entitled to luff all the way to head to wind, thereby shutting off the gate here, not letting red sneak in there. We're not going to get into the issue of how late can you do that and can you scrape them off. In general, yellow can do whatever they want. After the start, once the starting signal sounds, then the leeward boat can't sail above close haul if the overlap with the windward boat was established from astern. Think, God, what's all this mean? What's it? Another drawing. This is a drawing that I scanned out of that book. So first of all, the term is often called barging, where someone comes coming in along the side here, 15 seconds to go in a broad reach, so you got lots of speed, you're not worried, you're checking your time, just playing with the sails, so you're going to get here at exactly 1 millisecond before the horn goes off. Well, you can't do that and expect to get a spot, because someone coming up here to leeward can shut you out, luff you head to wind, and to say, don't go there, you're a barger. And there's a lot of bargers in our fleet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I need to teach them a lesson. Now, here is another situation. 20 seconds to go before the horn. Here's white, clear ahead of the black one. Okay, as they, the Windward boat comes alongside. This guy down here starts to yell and yell. You know, don't go in there. I'm not going to give you room. And then starts to luff up. The start is right at this point. They're both about 6 seconds late from the look of it. So as soon as the horn goes, this boat thinks, now he has to go back down to his proper course. But no.
Oh, it's not to actually pass the
Because, no. It depends on how the overlap was established. At no point was this leeward boat behind the windward boat. It's actually the other way around. The windward boat overtook him. And because of that, when the horn goes, there is no necessity for this leeward boat to come down to close haul or their proper course. Okay, we've got up around the weather mark. What about going downwind? Because remember, most of the passing situations occur going downwind. So here's a case where yellow is coming down with some new wind and is just starting to overtake red. And yellow is overtaking to leeward and from clear astern. Therefore, Rule 17 says that they can't sail above their proper course. So they cannot luff this boat up. They've just got to, this boat, the red boat is presumably heading on the shortest possible route to the next mark. They just have to glide along the side, and they can't luff them up, they can't touch. If they come down here and touch the boom, they're out. They have to do a 360. Now, the opposite situation. Here's Jerry roaring down on red, and the yellow boat over here suddenly sees him coming and starts to luff up in this direction. Now, because red is coming from behind yellow, okay, it is not establishing an overlap to leeward. Rule 17 doesn't apply. Yellow can sail as high as she likes, including coming all the way around and going up head to wind. Now, you probably don't want to do that because the other 5 boats over here are going to get by. If you're in team racing, it's maybe actually part of the template. So Rule 17 applies when someone establishes an overlap from clear astern to leeward. And if you do that, the rule says you can't sail above your proper course. Mercury. And we have if we look at all the conflicts that occur out in our course, I'll bet you at least half of them are due to Mercury. So, Rule 18 is all about Mercury. It's the longest rule in the book. It goes on for pages, and it's got all kinds of subparts. Now, it doesn't apply at the start. At the starting mark, if there's navigable water all the way around it, which in our fleet there is. If the starting mark were actually on the end of a dock and there isn't navigable water on the inside of it, that's a different situation. So if there's water all around the start mark, Rule 18 doesn't apply until after they're already past it. And Rule 18.1 applies when at least one of the 2 boats, not necessarily both, but one of the boats is within what's called the zone. And the zone is an imaginary circle surrounding the mark of interest, and the radius of the circle is 3 times the boat length. As soon as one of the boats crosses that line, Rule 18.2 kicks in and says that the inside boat at that point has room. Okay? Even though the inside boat may not have even got to the circle yet, as long as they have an overlap. The key is overlap and at the time. So here we go. So here's the 3 boat length virtual circle. Okay, red has just crossed into it. Yellow is not yet there, but yellow is overlapped with red. You draw a perpendicular line across there. Therefore, that rule, 18.2, says that yellow is entitled to get room to go around the mark. So red can't just sort of reach off and cut them off. That's a no-no. So that's easy. Now, where a lot of the trouble occurs, especially with Fred, is when people are tacking inside the zone. There's several reasons you can get into trouble with it. The best thing to do is to avoid tacking in the zone, but let's talk about why. because maybe you can actually use this.
I didn't think that's what the rule said.
No, it doesn't. That was my interpretation. Here's something that's closest to what the rule says. If you've got two boats coming toward a mark on opposite tack, and this is at the windward mark, so usually someone is on the ley line approaching, and someone had decided to go left and is now coming along on port tack, and sort of laying a mark, and they're both eyeing each other, thinking, well, what's going to happen when we get there? If one of them changes tack within the zone, it cancels Rule 18.2. It doesn't apply anymore. So you're no longer entitled, the inside boat is no longer entitled to room if it had tacked inside the circle. And not only that, here's the real kicker. The boat that changed tacks not only doesn't have a claim to room, but it shall not cause the other boat to have to suddenly come up to miss them. And it's not come up head to wind, it should come up to closer than close haul. Now this can be a real squishy issue in a protest meeting. Did you go above close haul or didn't you? And then, this is an interesting one, shall then, the boat that tacked not only has no rights, but they also have to give room to the other boat if it becomes overlapped inside her at any time during the rounding. So, here's an example. Okay, red got to the zone before yellow. You think, well, he's golden, right? Yes, but it's going to have to tack, and the tack will occur inside the zone, and going to be tacking just in front of that yellow boat potentially. So here's what the David Perry book talks about. Okay, this person actually started the tack outside of the circle, but the tack was completed inside. So he's head to wind at the circle, lays off, gets on the. So he's actually from here to here he's luffing, from here to here he's tacking. And because that occurred inside the circle, he cannot force this white boat here to go above close hauled. You know, that's definitely a protest. Okay, so the situation is the usual. It's never black and white. There's always a little bit of shaded gray. So here's red, and boy, he's right in the circle. He's crossed completely into it before yellow's even there. And he's thinking, God, yeah, I've got him. I've got him. The question really is, can red get around without fouling yellow? All right, well, let's have a look. So here he is. Yeah, he looks familiar. He's going to cross clear ahead, right? And he says, well, I'm just going to tack right in front of him. Give him all that dirt and stuff. Things are looking golden. There he is. You know, no one's had to go above head to wind, unless, while he was tacking, he slowed down so much that yellow's about to run into him at the last second, in which case he could poke up and protest. But let's assume that didn't happen. And here, red, still clear ahead, just about to go around the mark. Perpendicular across his stern, he's still clear ahead. But as he turns another micro-inch, oh my God, that perpendicular comes across, and now yellow has an overlap. And the overlap has occurred after red got himself into trouble by tacking inside the zone. At this point, yellow has all the rights. Red has to give yellow room because of Rule 18.3b. And here's another example. Okay, so same situation, set the black boat here, and says, well, I went to the lecture. I'm not going to tack in front of that white boat. He gets into trouble. So he's going to keep going beyond the white boat and then tack and come around. But as he comes around, he's got to leave room for the white boat to get through, because the white boat has the rules. Has the rules on his side. So, summary. At the windward mark, we've got this 3 boat length circle. It all depends when the first boat crosses the circle, whether or not an overlap existed. So we've talked about the boat that has an inside overlap at the time either one of the boats crosses that imaginary 3 boat length circle is the one with the rights. We talked about tacking in the zone, at your own risk. Now finishing marks, we usually finish going upwind, not always. A finishing mark can be on either end of the line. We've got the pin and we've got the committee boat. They are both marks of the course. So these rules also apply at finishing marks. You can't try to scrape someone off on the committee boat as you come in. The leeward mark is where a fair bit of yelling is sometimes occur in our fleet. And again, at the leeward mark, everyone's coming down, often in a big bunch, because the boats that are behind are catching the ones in front because they're blocking the wind. And the zone still exists, 3 boat lengths. So it's the same diameter zone. And again, the same rules apply. Whoever gets there first, any overlaps that existed at that time will determine who has or has not rights. Now the other thing is, down at the leeward mark, some boats are coming in on starboard and some are coming in port. Some of the boats are going to have to jibe. Ah, well, do they have rights? Well, here's a situation. There's a special part of Rule 18, Rule 18.4, that talks specifically about this. So here's a red boat. This is coming straight down from the windward mark, and they are on what tack, Tibby?
Oh, I was sleeping. It's on port.
But here comes a yellow boat that's on starboard, reaching in rapidly. Red has just arrived at the circle and is saying, "Hey, I got to the circle. I'm gold." Well, no, you're not, because yellow has an overlap on it if you draw a perpendicular across. Therefore, yellow can argue that they have, because of Rule 18.2, they have room at the mark because they were inside when this one hit, an inside overlap. And yellow had to jibe to get around. But yellow, because they're on starboard, also has right of way. Yellow can't keep off sailing off the bottom of the page and pick their time to jibe. Now, in team racing, that's a common tactic. Because in team racing, the whole concept of what's the proper course doesn't really apply. Here, it does apply. Rule 18.4 says that yellow must follow their proper course and jibe at the normal position as they come around. If you read all the fine print, it basically says that whatever yellow would have done in the absence of red, it needs to do in the presence of red. So it can't take red off to, in this case, right field. Now, another situation that occurs, a big mob scene at the leeward mark, lots of boats. So there's the circle. The red boat has just crossed the circle. The green boat is just overlapped with the red boat. Therefore, the green boat is entitled to room on the inside to get around. But guess what? The yellow boat is overlapped with the green boat. Therefore, the yellow boat is entitled to room on the green boat and the red boat. So this poor guy out here has to go around all of them. And, often there's more than 3 boats involved. But the key is an intervening boat. If it has an overlap on this guy and you have an overlap on him, it's as though you had an overlap directly on here. The rights get transferred up the line. So, in conclusion, we've learned over the last couple of weeks what makes a boat go. You know how to trim the sails. You know about wind shifts and how they can help or hinder you. You know some tactics. You know how to use some of the rules.
Okay, that's the end of the 4-part series on sailboat racing. I hope you find it useful.